Evan's mom was seriously amazing at homeschooling, and she was even doing it while still working in the medical field. She was so smart, she did her research, and she thought it was very likely that her son had dyslexia. But there was so much more to the story. Within one lesson, I found 3 red flags, and none of them were about Evan. Today, I'm going to share with you what those patterns were and why they matter so much to this narrative. I started out by asking to see the scope and sequence of the curriculum that they were using, and that's just the fancy term for trying to find out what are you teaching and what order are you teaching it in. And because Evan's mom was so on top of everything, she knew exactly what I was looking for and she sent it right over. When I took a closer look at that, it was kind of all over the place. In just one unit, they were jumping from consonant blends to long vowels and back again with a sprinkle of little suffix endings mixed somewhere in there. This was immediately a red flag because the most effective way to teach phonics is in a crystal clear, laser-focused progression from the simplest to the most complex skills in that order. Red flag number 2 popped up when I took a look at the alignment between the reading and the spelling lessons, and there wasn't any. Reading and spelling must be taught at the same time because they are 2 sides of the same coin. We can't be teaching our kids how to read words with R-controlled vowels while we're learning how to spell something totally different. It doesn't work like that. If the goal is for your child to learn as much as they can, as fast as they can, in the easiest way possible, then we need to focus on the way that the brain is actually wired to learn. And we don't have to guess on that or come up with something that sounds pretty cool. We have decades of research to pull from that tell us. All that research tells us that reading and spelling go together like peanut butter and jelly. We're not going to separate them. If you're hearing these things and starting to wonder if maybe your curriculum has some of these problems, that's exactly what I help families sort out. Enrollment only opens once a year, so join the wait list below and you'll be the first to know when that happens. I've been teaching kids to read for 12 years, and this last red flag is the one that really gets under my skin as a reading specialist. So many homeschool programs encourage kids to memorize words. You know the ones. Heart words, sight words, flash words, red words, star words, call them whatever you want. But hear me on this. Teaching a child to memorize a word, such as my, for example, will only ever add one word to their bank. But teaching them to sound out the word my, I, and explaining that why is a tricky part of the word, but there is a reason for it and a predictable pattern, will add so many words to their bank. My, buy, fly, sky, cry, dry, fry. I could probably go on, and your child would be able to read all of those words just by having that instruction in the word my. About 87% of the words in our English language are at least partially decodable, and that means we don't have to be memorizing. I could go on about this for a long time, but here's why it matters so much. Because this amazing mom was laying awake at night thinking the absolute worst about her child and his ability to read without even knowing that there was a totally different problem. You wouldn't try to make a cake with the wrong ingredients, and you can't teach a struggling reader to read with the wrong instruction. Here's the most important thing. Evan's mom didn't miss these signs because she wasn't paying attention. She missed them because spotting those signs requires training that she was never meant to have. That's my job as the reading specialist. I spot these things so you don't have to. After a few months in a loving literacy cohort, Evan was mastering new skills every week, and it was very clear that he did not need to have an evaluation for dyslexia. Here's something to think about. About 40% of kids learn to read no matter what kind of reading instruction you give them. I guess you could say that those 40% have a gift. But the other 60%, those kids depend on having explicit and systematic phonics instruction in order to succeed. And that's just a fancy way of saying the exact right skills taught in the exact right order in the exact right way. You should not gamble on this. The right kind of phonics instruction is harmful for no one, but it is essential for some. And for those kids that it is essential for, it can change their life. So if you are considering a formal evaluation for your child, you won't want to miss my next video. 3 things to check before you pay for a dyslexia test. I'll see you there.